Hello guys, welcome back to the session. So in our last sessions, we have discussed about the file directories and the file directory path, general path directory, and the file system mounting with the mount points. So today we are going to discuss about file sharing. As we know, the terminology file sharing says whenever we have a multi-user system, so one particular machine can be used by many users. So in such a scenario, a particular file can be shared among different users, or the owner, whoever creates the particular file, will become owner by default. So he can assign some other users as the co-user for a particular file. So on the other hand, we are going to say it is nothing but a sharing of files. So these things, that is a sharing of files, are much suitable when we have multi-user systems. So that is, sharing of files on multi-user systems is desirable. Sharing may be done through a protection scheme. So this particular scenario, protection scheme, is nothing but via giving proper privileges and authentication procedures, saying that whenever a particular file has to be shared, so that particular file should be shared in such a way that whether that particular file is read-only or readable and writable or rewritable, or we can make it for any other purpose, for say for example for other input for any other programs. So that is via providing proper privileges based on the hierarchical level, based on the file that you are going to share. So that is via providing a proper protection mechanism, protection scheme. So when on a distributed systems, files may be shared across a network. So when we are dealing in a particular distributed manner or in a network, over a network, the particular file can be shared. Again, the file sharing, whoever accesses the particular file may be based on his or her privileges. On the other hand, the privileges given to access particular file, readable, writable, rewritable, or executable. So based on that, it may obtained, that particular protection scheme should be obtained. So whenever we have a distributed mechanism, the file must be shared across a network. So for this purpose, so we are going to make use of NFS, that is network file system. So it is a common distributed file sharing method. So that is NFS, as we say in multi-user system, user IDs are provided, user identification or user ID identifiers we provided for each individual users. So user IDs identify users, allowing permissions and protections to be per user. So along with the user ID, we can provide the permissions, access permission and protection for each individual users. We can have group IDs also. We can group number of users so that we can give permission or access permission based on that particular group access. So group IDs allow users to be in groups, permitting group access rights. So now, to perform these activities, either via using user IDs or whether using group IDs, we should have a owner of a particular file or directory, and even in the same way, group of a particular file or directory. So using that owner's privileges or using that owner's credential, we can provide the access permissions or file using access permissions with, say for example, protection also for a particular file that's to be shared or shown to that particular individual members. And if it is in a group, for an entire group, one particular administrator can be given access to that particular file, and he or she, the administrator, may have been told to share that particular file via providing group IDs. So some systems have more complicated access control in sometimes. So that is during allocation or during specifying specific groups, we should be taken care to provide the different protection schemes. So when file sharing with the remote file systems, so that is with respect to network is considered. Using network, we can allow a file can be shared. So that is users networking to allow file system access between systems manually via programs like FTP automatically or seamlessly using distributed file systems, semi-automatically via the World Wide Web. So we can consider some of the examples. For example, when we say a file system, a file can be shared across network, that is remote file systems. So in such cases, we can make use of FTP, file transfer protocol, to send or receive a file, that is manually. So you should have a proper access permission for that particular file. On the other hand, you must be owner, or you may not, you may be an administrator, so that you can share that particular file. That is via the command line arguments, we can supply that particular file or upload that particular file. Or on the other hand, if it is an automatic environment, we can go with the distributed file systems. So you can easily distribute among several other systems so that that particular file, individual file, can be accessed. The next semi-automatic is through internet, that is via World Wide Web. So there is another possibility to share the file when we have remote file systems. So we can have client server model also. Client server model allows clients to mount remote file systems from servers. That is, server can serve multiple clients at a time. Client and user on client identification is insecure or complicated. So that is, via using client server mechanism, server can provide different file accesses based on the client identification. So whenever a client wanted to have a particular file, client should request a server. So while the request process has been taken care by the backend of the server, automatically the server will identify whether the client is a genuine or authenticated. Then only the file might have been shared. That is one particular scenario. So that is, client and user on client identification is insecure. That is, for example, based on one particular client, using the identification mechanism, it is little bit insecure, because only after the connection establishment, client has been authenticated, right? So we can have NFS, network file sharing. Network file system is a standard Unix client server file sharing protocol. We can have CFS also, that is standard Windows protocol. And we can have other standard operating system file calls or translated into remote calls. We can make use of different other system calls to make use of this file sharing mechanism. We can have distributed information systems, DIS, or distributed naming services such as LDAP, Lightweight Directory Access Protocol, DNS, Domain Name Server, NIS, and Active Directory implement unified access to information needed for remote computing. So we can make use of several distributed environments. So using that environment, we can make use of file sharing effectively. Sometimes this particular file sharing also fails. That is, as all file systems have failure modes. For example, corruption of directory structure or other non-user data, that is via metadata. Each file has its details in its metadata, saying that, so in metadata, we have the file name, we have the owner, we have who and all can access that particular file, when it is modified, when it's created, when it is updated, all those individual details, and what we have in that particular file. So there is something like summary, properties of that particular file, nothing but metadata. So now, with respect to that particular metadata is concerned, so this metadata is shared where exactly that file has been located. So in that particular scenario, if a root is bifurcated or root has some modifications during some software update or some protocol update, so at that time the particular file maybe there are chances of a file going to be corrupted. So in such scenario, the file sharing may not work out properly. So now there is nothing but a file system failure, or we can say the failure mode with respect to particular access. So now these failures may happen during file sharing also. So remote file systems add new failure modes due to network failure or server failure, as also server failure. So due to network failure, for example, during the transmission, for example, if you consider client server model, during once client is authenticated, server should start with the transferring of the file from server towards the client. So during that particular transmission, if something happens in between, say if power failure in that particular communication line, so then the file may not reach on the other side, that is client side. So that is due to network failure. Or with respect to network, if something happens with the communication channel or router or a gateway, nothing but the fault of network failure. Or on the other hand, server, sometimes server also fail to recognize the client, server also fail to recognize the communication channel that is to be sent, through that files has to be sent. So these are the some of the area or some of the methodology where failure may occur during remote file transmissions, remote file systems. So recovery from failure can involve state informations about status of each remote request. That is, at what state it has been failed. If you consider the same example, client server mechanism, during the transmission from server side towards the client side, is there any problem? Right. So that is during transmission, if something happened with the communication channel or due to power failure or maybe router has been corrupted. So that is the state should be the in which state the transfer was at the during the disconnection. So that is state information. So this state information may involve all those details. It will have status of each remote request also. And we can make use of stateless protocols such as NFS version 3 network file sharing. Include all information in each request, allowing easy recovery but less security. So whenever we can say easy recovery, on the other hand, is nothing but security flaws may be there. These are the different failure modes with respect to file sharing. And to have a consistency, we can maintain consistency semantics. That is specifying how multiple users are to access a shared file simultaneously. So the process synchronization algorithms that we discussed in our previous session, process synchronization, different process synchronization algorithms. So in that, using that synchronization algorithms, we can allow this file sharing also. It tend to be less complex due to disk input output and network latency. So when this particular latency is concerned with only with respect to remote file systems only, we can make use of Andrew file system AFS implemented complex remote file sharing semantics. That is to maintain with the consistency. And we can have UFS, Unix file systems. So it will be implemented via, it writes to an open file, it will visible immediately to other users of the same open file. For example, one particular file content should be shared among several users. So instead of sending the same file again and again, so using UFS, so the content of the file can open in any one of the open file visible, in one of the open file. Same thing can be opened automatically for the other users also. Sharing file pointer to allow multiple users to read and write concurrently. So this is one of the advantage with the UFS. Sharing file pointer to allow multiple users can read and write concurrently. So for example, to more clear knowledge about this UFS is something like, so for example, you have a C file, C program file. So you can open using Turbo C only, or you can make use of using some other editors. You can make use of VI editor, you can make use of Notepad, you can make use of some GCC editor, other editors also. But when you already opened with the consider VI editor, so if UFS diagnosed with you already opened VI editor, it understood that you opened VI editor automatically. So UFS may allow to open the particular file open in VI editor only. At the same time, other users, whoever looking after that particular file, they'll also can read the file using VI editor. So that is what this particular point says. UFS writes to an open file visible immediately to other users of the same open file. And in this AFS, it has session semantics. So writes only visible to sessions, stating after the file is closed. So then we are coming to the protection part. So when we say protection, the file owner or whoever the created the file, so they should be able to control what can be done and by whom. So they can easily decide. They're supposed to decide who can access the particular file and what it means access in the sense. These types of access are read, write, execute, append, delete, and list. Read only permission can be given. So only read permission can be provided by the owner or the creator of the file, or write permission can write anything, or execute permission, or append something. So you can read as well as append something to the existing file. You can delete some of the part of the file, or you can delete entire file, or you can have a list of that particular file. So these are the different possibilities of access, types of access. Either any one of them may be provided to the user, or combination of these can be given as an access permission by the owner or by the creator or by the administrator to the other number of users. When we say this particular mechanism list, access list, if you're saying, so that is different modes of access. That is nothing but read, write, and execute. So we can decide, or we can have a classification under a Unix environment, Unix or Linux environment. The classes are three classes. There is owner access, group access, and public access. So owner access, that is nothing but read, write, and execute. We are going to represent read, write, and execute, RWX. That is 111 in binary. Nothing but the 7 is a value. So using this particular value representation, we can give any file with the owner access. Second one is group access. Group access in the sense, again, read, write, and execute, but there is no execute permission. That's why for that X, we are putting it 0. So 110, that is 6. So when we say group access, only read and write permission can be given. And public access. Public access in the sense, we can give 0 for read, 0 for write, and execute for 1. So only 1, that is the value as 1, represents public access. There are three variants in classes of users: owner access, group access, public access. Owner access represented by 7 or 111 RWX. Group access, that is 6, read, write, and execute. Execute will not be there. That's why it is 0 for X, and 110 can be read also, can be read as 6. Public access only for execution. So now, once we decide with this access, the creator or the owner can ask the manager to create a group with a unique name or unique identifier, say G for example, and add some user to the group. So here, by considering as an example, say we are trying to create a group with the name game. So for a particular file, say game is the name or subdirectory, define an appropriate access. So according to these three classes, owner, group, and public, supposed to provide the access to this particular file. So for the owner, we are going to give RWX. That's why 7 represented here. For group, we are representing 6. That is for read and write. Public can execute. Public can utilize the game. So CH mode represents change mode, change of access permission for this particular game file, game group. So now game file will have some of the games. So this will have the provision with the 761, that is access list or access specifier. So 7 represents owner, 6 represents group, 1 represents public. So whoever is having owner permission, they can do all the activities on this, that is read, write, and execute. Whoever having group access, they can only read and write. Whoever having the public access, they can just utilize the game, they can run the game. Along with that, we can attach a group to a particular file. So here we created a file that is game. so which is having the permission 761. So we are trying to add this particular game into the group G. So that is CH group. Change group, that is game to the G. So this is the destination. So any clarification in this? Any doubt or any clarification you can get back? So here you can see as an example, Windows 7 access control list as a management. So this particular access control list you can obtain in any other, I'll tell you how it is. So right now in this particular example, you can see listpanel.java. So listpanel.java is a file which is having the access list and groups as follows. So when we say the access is nothing but a security or protection. So we are going to give the protection with these kind of facilities. Consider, so this is a object name in H folder. Within that we have H directory, we have data folder, within that pattern material, within that source, within that list panel.java. So we have a file list panel.java in this particular path. And who and all can access? So these many people can access. System can access, Gregory G can access, guest can access, file administrators can access, administrators can access. So these are the people, those who can access. So we are making it as a group. Then how to provide permissions for this individual? So select any one among this one. So right now we are trying to set the permissions for guest. So guest has been selected. So whenever you select one particular user, automatically his permissions are listed out like this. So you can enable, allow, can give a tick mark or enable. So over here we are providing the special permission. Say full control, that is denied, modify, denied, read and execute, denied, read, denied, write, denied, and only special permissions. Furthermore, if you wanted to have special permission, more advantages, you can click on advanced and apply and then OK. This is how to set up access permissions or access control list in a Windows. Similarly, you can have this kind of scenario whenever you can easily trace out this particular access control list you can manage. Whenever you see a file in a Windows platform, right click on that, go to properties. Then you will have these many or few more options. From there, select security and you will have same window, same functionality. Fine, understood? Okay. So it is a Unix directory listing. So here in this previous case, we have seen Windows. So this is a Unix environment. So with respect to Unix, you can see different structures. When we say Unix, it's nothing but a representation in the form of read, write, and execute, that is RWX. So here you can see the file name intro.ps that is created on September 3 at 8:30. It is having this many bytes. It is staff or group, this particular group can access that particular file with RW, that is 1 with respect to 1, that is access permission is 1. Similarly, we can have another file, so that is in the private, that is private section has been created in July 8 on this many days, which is having this many bytes allocated to staff with RWX. This is a different scenario in Unix file directory, Unix system. So any clarification, any doubt so far? Coming to the file system structure. So when we say file structure, it has some logical storage unit and it has collection of related information, that is file structure. So whatever may be the type or variant of a particular file, it should have a structure, should have a storage unit, its own logical storage, and should have a collection of related information related with that particular file. Then only we can categorize what kind of file it is. So file system resides on secondary storage. On the other hand, disk, maybe hard disk, floppy disk, or a pen drive, any other secondary storage. So we have all those file system in the disk. So it will provide a user interface to storage or map logical to physical. For example, whenever you wanted to read some file from your pen drive or CD, compact disk, automatically, whenever you double click on that particular file, that particular file is automatically loaded to the main memory or physical memory or logical, on the other hand, whatever the memory we have in the machine. So that is temporarily available in that particular memory until you finish your reading. So provided user interface to storage, mapping logical to physical. It also provides efficient and convenient access to disk by allowing data to be stored, located, retrieved easily, so that you can perform other read-write operations. For example, for this one, we can give another example of browser. Say you are making use of any browser, you have a history. So if you already visited that particular file, that particular web page, so in the next time, whenever you try to open, it will open a little bit in faster mode, because most of the features already you have seen, you have gone through it. That's why it is available in history. Nothing but is available in the cache memory also. Some of the features of that particular browser, that particular window, whichever the window you wanted to open or page you wanted to open, right? Similarly, the file system also. If you already visited once, or if you already tried to open a particular file from the external disk, secondary storage, then for the second time, it will make us a little bit convenient to access. And disk provides in-place rewrite and random access based on the usage, based on the whether you are an admin, whether you are a super user. Then the disk will provide you the option for rewrite and random access. So to perform this one, so it will enable IO transfers performed in blocks of sectors. As we studied the structure of disk, so different platters, each platter divided into tracks, each track divided into sectors. So this IO transfer to a disk is performed via a number of blocks, usually 512 bytes per second. Usually 512 bytes can be writing or reading, can be performed, both input and output. You can have a file control block as well for a storage structure. It consists of information about a file, that is file control block, which will have details about all those files. For example, metadata information are available in this file control block. You can make use of device driver, you can control the physical device as well. Device driver, say for example, you are copying, you are reading from a pen drive. So device driver related to that particular pen drive, which will help to control the physical device. And the particular file system can be organized into layers. This is how it works, layered file system. From top, application programs to logical file system, file organization module, then basic file system, IO control, and then devices. So this layered file system are nothing but the implementation of a file system. Coming to the layered file system, we can implement these file system either NFS or Linux file system. On the other hand, AES, AFS, or any other file system we can implement based on this layered approach. So in this layered approach, we can start with the devices, whichever the device we wanted to implement, on what platform, on what device we wanted to implement. There is lowest level of control. That is why using device drivers. When we have these devices, that is the lowest level or even in the physical level. So we can make use of these devices, and using device drivers, we can map, you can copy, you can do read, write, and execute on a particular file using device drivers. So this is the lowest control of a particular file. So that is as a lowest layer. So when we say devices, by default, all those disk drives, physical devices will come to picture. It may consist of magnetic media or media and control or other basic physical components or physical devices. And the IO control is nothing but, which is nothing but device driver or some other programs which may use to control these devices. The application program or device driver program or some other program which is used to control or have a look after this device. For example, say if it is input, if it is input, it is accepting the input from this particular device. If it is an output, it is sending output to this particular device. So that is how it works. So IO control is nothing but is having a controllable program or control program. Through that control program, we can monitor or we can communicate with the device by reading or writing special codes directly to that particular individual devices. For example, if it is an output, you're supposed to communicate with that particular output device saying that something has to be written. So each controller or each controller card, we can say, or each controller with the devices, which has a different set of address. For example, it may have number of registers, number of ports as well. For example, if you want to put a particular file in a network, you can make use of RJ45, that is internet or a LAN cable through the LAN cable. So that is having a different port number. Right, through that particular port, you can send those data, or we are going to send it via registers as well. The basic file system level, which may mark the particular basic file system level works directly with the device drivers in terms of retrieving and storing raw blocks of data. Or for example, we can say in this particular scenario, if you're considering say a pen drive as a device. So you are going to store a particular file in a particular pen drive. So using device driver program, which is related with that particular company's pen drive, you are going to send or receive the file with the different commands communicate. And we have a particular basic file system. So the basic file system, what it does is, based on the format you chose, to write or read from the file. So in that particular mechanism, it will read and write. The basic file system is nothing but, so whenever you buy a new pen drive, in which format you are going to format it, or you may delete entire thing and reload the format. NTFS, DOS, AOS, different file system mechanisms. So that is what it means, basic file system, and directly works with the device drivers as well. And then we have file organization module. So this file organization module it will show about the files and their logical blocks, how they can map with respect to physical blocks in the disk. This is in general file organization, how that this whatever the files we wanted to read, whatever the files we wanted to write on the particular device, how you wanted to see it, either number of blocks in the form of physical blocks or in the form of different other sectors. That is file organization block. So it's nothing but it is something like translating from logical to physical blocks, converting from logical to physical blocks, because whenever you are copying a particular file from one location to another location, you can clearly observe the number of blocks has been transferred from source to destination, right? So if it is a, for example, for easier understanding, you can say cut and paste. If it is a large file, you can see the flow. This number of bytes has been moved from source to destination. Consider you are trying to copy a movie from your computer to pen drive. Say the movie is of around 2 GB size. So it won't copy in a fraction of a second. It will take some time, around 2 to 10 seconds. So at that particular period, you can see that movement, some graphical notation it may appear. So that is how that blockwise movement can be takes place into the disk. That is what file organization module. And coming to the logical file system, it deals with all metadata. So this particular layer, logical file system, it deals with all the metadata informations. For example, user IDs, group IDs, and what mode and what in what manner the particular file has to be copied or read or written. So that is a logical file system will maintain the metadata information So who is the owner of the file? Who is the administrator? And what all users are associated with that particular file? Number of groups, group IDs, user authentications, nothing but user IDs, date created, date modified, all those informations are available in this particular logical file system. And not only that one, the file system, it will support logical file system, which also supports the file control block, because we supposed to store all this information in file control blocks itself. So all of the metadata information must be stored in the, must be recorded in the file control block. And coming to the topmost layer, so that is application program. Using several application programs, we can perform these many things. So when we say application programs, by consider a situation, you wanted to watch a movie. So using Windows Media Player or some other player, say VLC Media Player, using VLC, you are trying to open a movie file. So to open that particular file from the pen drive, so these many layers it is supposed to pass through. So logical file system will have those metadata information, what kind of file it is, who and all are can be viewed that particular movie, all those details, and how it is stored, in what format it has been stored, and device driver control to read from that particular pen drive. So these are the things as a layered file system approach. So we can implement a file system using this layered file system approach. Any doubts so far? So we can use the device drivers to manage with IO devices at the IO control layer. You can give command like read drive 1, cylinder 72, track 2, sector 10 into memory location 1060. So this is how we can deal with device drivers in the lowermost layer. The second upper layer, this one, the IO control or basic file system, given command like retrieve block 123. It translates to device driver. It also manages memory buffers and cache. That is allocation, freeing, replacement, rebuffering, all those. Buffers hold data in transit. Cache hold frequently used data. So these are things we are already familiar with. File organization module understands files, logical address, and physical blocks, how that block-wise transmission. That is what given an example of copying a movie from your computer to the pen drive. So it translates logical block numbers to physical block number. It manages with the free space and disk. This is one thing I forgot to highlight. So if there is no space, there is no enough space in your pen drive, say while copying 2 GB movie from your PC to pen drive. So if there is no enough space, then the file organization module should alert the user saying that no enough space, please delete some other files, or difficult to copy. Some message box messages may appear. So this managing with that particular free space also the job of file organization module. And in logical file system will manage the metadata, details or properties of the data, that is file name into file number, file handle, all these are available in our control block, file control block. And layering useful for reducing complexity and redundancy, but it will have some overhead also. Because of that, the performance may decrease, because translating into the file number, file handle, location by maintaining control blocks, there is nothing but inode in Unix. So these are the complication or overhead in maintaining the FCB, file control block. So many file systems, sometimes many within an operating system, may follow its own format. That is, say CD-ROM is ISO 9660 format, Unix has UFS, Unix file system format, and FFS. Windows has FAT32 and 64 NTFS, as well as floppy, CD, DVD, Blu-ray. So many types we have with the extended file system like ext2, ext3, and some of the new ZFS, Google file system, Oracle ASM, Fuse. So these are the various file systems. So we can make use of in different operating systems. Coming to the implementation part. So as we know, we have different system calls at the API level, application program interface level. With respect to front end, we have different system calls as APIs. But how do we implement their functions? For example, you can easily say if file should be created, can open function, open method can be used to open a particular file, or in general, we can say if it is a process, we can make use of fork. So whenever fork is called, a new process has been created. So it may inherit the property from its parent and it may share the resources. Similarly, how we can implement that particular part in respect to files, that is on disk and in memory structures. So we'll refer to the boot control block. We are referring boot control block. It contains information needed by system to boot operating system from that particular volume. So needed, if volume contains operating systems, usually first block of volume. This is what we already discussed. So if you have more than one operating system, so this operating block supposed to direct to a particular block. So in the which block should be read first. So that is what we supposed to do via device drivers. And we can have volume control blocks also. They're nothing but super block, master file table, etc. So it contain volume details. That is total number of blocks, number of free blocks, block size, and free block pointers or other arrays. So that is maintained by volume control block. So why we need volume control block? To have a different block of data. So which block is free, which block is allocated, which the size, number of free blocks, all those details are available in volume control block. And we can have a directory structure also with respect to implementation, like a tree structure. So it can organize the particular file based on name and inode number or master file table also. So this is how we can structure within a particular directory to organize different files. And we can have individual file control block, that is per file. File control block, it contains many details about the file. As we know, the file permissions based on the user, file date, when it is created, when it is last accessed, when something has to be updated in that particular file, who is the owner of the file, or the group of users that can be accessed, and file size, file data blocks or pointers to file data blocks. So these are the information available in individual per file control block, individual file block. So whenever a particular file has been created, during that particular period only, whoever the creator or owner of the file, they can assign these many things. They can provide file permissions for individual users if it is a file sharing, or if you are sharing, if that particular file has to be shared with the among users, group of users, then group related informations can be provided over here. So inode number, permissions, size, dates. And NTFS stores into a master file table using relational database structures or relational database structures. And we can have in-memory file system structures also. We can mount a table storing file system mounts. That is mount points, file system types. You can see the following two diagrams. We'll discuss with the diagram. And buffers hold data blocks from secondary storage for copying or writing purpose. So we'll see in the diagram. So here you can see two diagrams, A and B. In the first diagram, user space, a user trying to open a particular file from the secondary storage. So now, whenever a particular open file command has to be sent at that time, what happens is the command is to move to the kernel memory. It will trace out the particular file is available or no. If it is not available, supposed to reply. And in the directory structure, that particular file should be copied. On the other hand, we can say cache memory or a buffer so that it can be read. So it is refers to the open file, just to open a particular file. So please follow my cursor. So using this open file command, the control has to be sent from user space to kernel memory. From kernel memory, it will maintain who has been addressed that particular file, because from whom the request has come. So all those information are available in this. and then the controls sent to the secondary storage. In secondary storage, file control block will update that particular detail because it will maintain those data. Whoever opened, who is the last owner who has been updated that particular file, all those details will updated in that scenario, and then file has to be moved to the kernel memory. This is just for an open file, to open a particular file. And to read a particular file, consider the same situation. To read the particular file, same thing supposed to be executed, but it will have another, that is per process open file table. So in this particular table, per process table, it has to be updated. So that is for reading file. Rest of the things are same. So here, the again file control blocks supposed to update, and when read operation is over, again it has been updated in the data block, that is in the data storage. So that is how it works in the in-memory file system structure, that is to open file and read a particular file. Coming to the partition and mounting. So partition can be a volume containing a file system. So here file system is, I've written cooked over here. I'll explain what it is. Partition can be a volume containing a file system, or raw, just a sequence of blocks with the no file system. So we can have two kinds of scenario. One is we can have a copy of file in a regulated file system. So this cooked is nothing but we can select, the user can select what type of file system he wanted to have in that disk, either NTFS, FAT32, AOS, any kind of. That is why I represented cooked, or raw without representing, just DOS, just as a DOS. So that is how raw file has been obtained in that, copied into that drive. So as a block, sequence of block. And once we have that kind of partitions, then boot block can point to boot volume or bootloader, set of blocks that contain enough code to know how to load the kernel from the file system. So boot block's job is to point out where exactly the first instruction has to be located. So that will help to boot or restart the machine. So the bootloaders will have the set of blocks. It contains enough code to know how to load the kernel. Or a boot management program for multi-OS. If it is a multi-OS, we should have a boot management program. That is in the form of partitions. How we can have a data in a partition, file in a particular partition. And we can have root partition also. So root partition contains the OS, that is other partitions, can hold other operating systems, other file systems, or be raw. So this is another provision with root partition. So when we have different partitions, say C drive, D drive, E drive, F drive, C drive can have Windows, D drive can have Unix, and so similarly other things. So now the bootloader is supposed to target with the set of blocks, usually with the boot management program, whenever we have multi operating system for booting purpose. So this particular partition may have operating system, may have other operating system, different other files, raw files also. So this operating system mounted at boot time, other partitions can mount automatically or manually thereafter. So based on the usage, you can set up whether you wanted to mount it whenever you boot, or whether you want to mount it whenever you need to use. Depends on user's choice. And again, at the mount time, file system consistency must be checked, whether the particular file system is approved in that particular scenario, in that particular drive during mounting. Because you can't install, as an example, you can't install Unix applications in Windows file. That's why we need to check file system consistency. You can't open a Unix file that is to be used in Windows environment. So it is all metadata is correct. So what's supposed to check for file system, that is metadata. And if it is not fixed, try again. You can see, I guess you have observed already. So you'll get to try again. For example, if you want to install an application, say VLC application in MacBook, extension must be DMG. You can't install the VLC media player in your Windows using the same DMG file extension. That is file system inconsistency. That is what it means. So this is the difference when you have different OS operating system. So that is the file. Whenever you try to copy or try to implement, try to run a particular application, you should be in a it should be checked for file system consistency, whether it can be mountable or implementable or can executable based on the file. So you can have VFS also, virtual file systems, that is on Unix. It will provide an object-oriented way of implementing file systems. So VFS allows the system call interface as API to be used for different types of file systems. So based on the usage, Unix will provide us the APIs, different APIs. There is separate file system generic operations from implementation details. This is what example I have given you. So one particular file application, the same file you can't make use or you can't implement, you can't execute in another operating system. So that is system call interface should not be or may not be created. A separate file system should be, generic operation should be needed. So implementation can be one of many file system types or network file systems. We can say vNode, that is virtual file systems, we can make use of vNode. So which hold all the inodes or network file details. So inode is nothing but a particular file which will have details about the file, say metadata. Similarly, vNode also, which holds all this inode or network file informations. Then it dispatches operation to appropriate file system implementation routines. So when it matches, then only it will supply to just dispatch the operation to appropriate file system implementation routines. You can see a diagram over here. So here you can see the API, which is of VFS interface, virtual file system. So it is rather than any specific type of file system. So file system interface. So any file interface that should be verified by VFS. Then based on the file system type, it has been served. Local file system type 1, type 2, and type another remote file systems. So here you can see if it is if you are trying to store it in a disk, you can go with the based on that particular local file system category, local file system mount. This is another local system. So based on that, it will bifurcate. And if it is a network, another variant. So that is why I using vNodes, virtual file system nodes. So how to implement this? Consider a scenario for Linux. It has 4 object types, that is inode, file, superblock, and dentry. So inode, nothing but of a entire description about the file, the actual file, and superblock which has to be stored, and entry, data entry. So that is VFS defines a set of operations on the objects that must be implemented. So what are the operations? When we say the operations, so this Linux file, by default, it has a 4 key object types. That is inode, file, superblock, and dentry. Inode is nothing but it is an object. It represents individual file descriptions, and is the actual file. And then superblock represents the file system, and dentry represents individual directory entries. So VFS provides different operations. Operations are nothing but read, write, execute, map. So all those are different operations, set of operations. You can see an example. Int open, so open a particular file. Int close, close the already opened file. S size, that is read from the particular file, part of the file. Write to a file, that is using write operation. M map, that is memory map. So these are the various operations provided by VFS. Coming to the directory implementation. The selection of directory allocation and directory management. So we have different algorithms also for this implementing directory allocation as well as for management also. So directory can be perform or on the directory, you can perform search, insert, delete, and other operations. So only the target is it's supposed to provide the efficiency, performance, and reliability on the particular file system. So we can have a linear list. So it is nothing but it is one of the simplest way, list of the file names with the pointer to the data blocks. So we can make use of linear list to implement the directory. So one of the simplest and easiest method for directory structure that is to set up, and but it has some drawbacks also. On the other hand, it is simple as well, but it will have some time consuming criteria, right? So time consumed to execute. It will have a linear search time also, could keep ordered alphabetically via linked list or use B plus trees. So because of that time consuming, to overcome that time consuming, we can have a dedicated scenario in which we can have all those in linked list or in B plus trees. On the other hand, deletion, for example, want to delete. Deletions can be done by moving all entries because it is linear list. So everything, and you can give a sorted list. So if it is a sorted, we can have a binary search also. So if you're having binary search, it reduces the time, because if it is a linear list, supposed to check from the beginning, one by one supposed to be copied based on the entry number of entries. So that is lengthier, time consuming. So instead of that, I can go with the linked list or B plus trees. The second implementation methodology is hash table. Using this hash table, we can implement nothing but hash table is nothing but it will combine with the linear list and with its data structure, hash data structure. So decreases the search time by, because of the hash table, it will decrease the search time. And sometimes collision may occur. So collision nothing but is a situation where two file names hash to the same location. It is a similar scenario for a particular location with two file names, then it is a collision. That is one of the drawback. So only good if entries are fixed size or use chained overflow method. So this is hash table is uh, implementable or can be a good practice when we don't have any collision, nothing but we don't have two file names which refer to the same location, or it will have a, when we have a fixed sized entry, then it is very good or adaptable. Moving to the allocation methodology, we can have contiguous allocation methodology. So that is main problem is how to allocate the space allocation. Why we need allocation is because to trace out the files, how to allocate the space to the individual files, because we supposed to utilize the disk space effectively so that we can access the file efficiently and in a faster mode. So we can follow any of the three methodologies we can employ. There is either continuous, contiguous, or linked, and yes, linked and indexed, I guess. Yes, indexed. So these are the three things we can come up with: contiguous, linked, and indexed. We'll see one by one. Contiguous. So an allocation method refers to how disk blocks are allocated for files. So there is allocation method. Contiguous allocation method is an allocation method which refer to how disk blocks are allocated. So in this case, all blocks of a file be kept together continuously. So that is continuous allocation, contiguous allocation. That is, each file occupies set of contiguous blocks. Continuous occupation, nothing but successive blocks. So all those individual files has to be loaded in the form of successive blocks in the successive blocks. Contiguous allocation. So it is best performance in most of the cases because it is, as it is a contiguous, it is easy to search. It is simple because it start from the beginning itself, block 0. Only starting location should be known, block number and length, number of blocks are required. But we have some drawbacks finding out space for a file. For example, if a particular file is having more bigger size, then by knowing the particular files, it is very difficult to allocate that particular block for a particular file. There is tracing out space for a particular file is little bit headache with this, because when a file size grows, so it is very difficult to manage with the contiguous memory allocation, because it's need for compaction offline, because downtime or inline, because we're supposed to have a deadline where exactly we can stop, because when that particular file grows, because a particular file can be shared among the different users, so different users may update, may keep on adding content to the particular file, so at that time file size increases. So whenever we have already implemented with the contiguous, but keep on updating, keep on adding content to a particular file will increase the memory space, increase the block size. So it is very difficult to allocate at that time, because the same block, same name, but only length differs, the size differ. That's why it is a little bit headache with this contiguous. So here you can see the scenario, how we can map the logical to physical. So you can see the disk 0 to N31 over here. So these blocks to be accessed. So the directory we have file, start and length. So the count file is started with 0, only with the 2. So you can see here 0 to 2, 0 and 1 is available for count. Then for a TR starts from 14 and is having the length 3 blocks. 14, 15 and 16 is allocated to the file TR. And coming to the mail starts from 19th, moves till 6, another 6, 19 plus 6, 19 to 6 till here. So as it is a contiguous memory block. Then list, a file name with the name list 28 plus 4, 28, 29, 30, 31 till here. Then a particular file F starts from 6 till 2, 6 and 2. So this is how it is represented in contiguous memory allocation. So now the problem is a directory is supposed to map with this particular thing, right? So now consider a situation, another file, say file name A, supposed to load in, starts from 4. So only one block is available over here. It is not possible to extend further, right? So that is a drawback. Or on the other hand, if you already have a file, say 1, so this particular count as file has been shared among the different users. So one particular user or 2 or more users may be adding contents to this particular file. So automatically it may need additional blocks. So it may reach up to over here only. Then it's some of the file already occupied. So at that time, it is very difficult to allocate. So that is a drawback behind this contiguous allocation. Then we have extent based system also. On the other hand, we can call it as Veritas file system. So it uses a modified contiguous allocation scheme. So that is based on the extent. So whenever there is a need, you can extend the particular block. You can shift it. So with respect to previous scenario, say the count file has been increasing, then you can shift the F block towards the next space so that you can allocate. So that is how it works. That is extent based systems. And coming to the linked allocation, so each file has a linked list of blocks. So file end up with a nil pointer only or null pointer only. So there is no external fragmentation as well. And each block contains pointer to the next block. So no compaction, external fragmentation not available. But free space management system can be utilized whenever there is a need of new block. It improves efficiency because of clustering blocks into groups, but increases internal fragmentation also. But one thing is reliability is a bigger problem. And locating, tracing out a particular block, take many IOs. You see a situation over here. And it will go with the FAT system, file allocation table variation. So there is beginning of volume has a table indexed by the block number. It's similar to the linked list, but faster on disk and it will be available through cache. New block allocation is simple. So here you can see the situation. So linked allocation. The file name with the name zip starts from 9, ends in 25, but starts from only the higher end, that is starts from 9. So the initial point is 9. From there, that particular node block itself has the next access, that is over here 13, 13 to 16. Then from there it will move to the 1. From there it will point towards 2. Then again last point is 25. So this is a null point. Null point -1 represents last point. Right. So this is how linked list setup, linked allocation is. So each block has a pointer which points towards the next block. So that is how linked list, linked allocation works. So each file is a linked list of disk blocks. It may be scattered anywhere. So block is nothing but pointer with the value. So how the mapping? Block to be accessed is the qth block in the linked chain of blocks representing the file. Displacement is r+1. So that is what we represent over here in this particular situation. Coming to the FAT, that is file allocation table, you can see a directory entry here with the name, file name, that is test. With the file name test, in this scenario, with this test name, the file content starts from the block 217. So starts from here 217. So it will have some value. So that is the content of the file. From that it directs to 618. So it will have some value. Again, from there it extended to 339. So this is how this pointer moves. So from 217 to 618, from there to 339. A number of blocks. So based on the blocks, it may allocate. So it is very difficult to trace out when there is an IO request, input output request, where exactly the file location has been very difficult to trace out in this situation, this scenario. The third allocation method, that is indexed. So indexed allocation, nothing but each file has its own index. Each file has its own index block of pointers to its data blocks. So logically we can say like this, we're supposed to maintain a index table. So index table supposed to have a pointer to its data block. How it is? So with respect to an example, directory with the file name zip, index block is 19. So 19 from here, so the data from this 19 should have the index table itself. So in that index table, these are the location we are supposed to specify: 9, 16, 1, 10, 25. So from 9, from this 19, some of the data is available in 9, some of the data available in 16, some of the data available in 1, some of the data available in 10, and then 25. So this is how this indexing works. So index table is loaded in one of the block, and that particular block has the details of all those file where it is shifted out. So that is, it is an index, need an index table. It's nothing but random access. Dynamics access without external fragmentation, but have overhead of index blocks. Again, tracing of individual files are a little bit tricky because of all those file contents are spread across the disk, so that it is a little bit trickier and a bit time consuming as well. But in this case, one of the things is it is dynamic mapping of logical to physical in a file, maximum size of 256K bytes and block size of 512 bytes. So we need only one block for index table. So only one block is enough to have a index. So how to map? Coming to the mapping of logical to physical in a file, say with respect to 512. With respect to linked scheme, we needed a index table with the like this. And coming to the index scenario, only one particular index table that is to be maintained in a single block. So that only single block has been needed with the block size of 512 words. so that it is easier to map with. Here you can see an example. This is a scenario. So we're supposed to have outer index, then we're supposed to have index table, and then to file. So here we can still see the scenario now. So come as a combined scheme, the Unix inode, Unix file system. So here 4K bytes per block with 32-bit address has been given. So at first we will have a different modes, number of owner, timestamp, size block count, all these details are available. So now each data supposed to have in a direct block, as a direct block, number of blocks, single direct, double direct, triple direct, and so on. This is how it takes place in this UFS. So as we are treating is an index block is nothing but a one disk block, which can be read and written in a single disk operation. Similarly for multi-level index also, and for combined, in this case combined in the sense both linked system and multi-level index, both are available. So it is linked direct blocks from here to here is a link, single direct. So here we have an index table, from that index table it is directing. We have double indirect. So we have a index table over here, that index table referring to some other index table, from there it is for some other data file. There is more index blocks than can be addressed with the 32-bit file pointer. So the performance, coming to the performance part. So best method depends on file access type. That is based on which file is supposed to access in which methodology or which access type. There is access type in the sense that there is read, write, execute, append, add, delete, all those. This continuous great for sequential random operations. The continuous allocation is really works well with sequential and random allocation. And linked allocation is very good for sequential and but not for random. And declare access type at creation itself. This is one of the good practice to have a access type permissions during its creation itself, because it is easier when it is allocating. Select either contiguous or linked itself while allocating itself. Index a little bit complex, but it can have more number of data. Why it is complex? Because it's supposed to diverting again and again. Single block access could require two index block reads, then data block read. So this is what we saw in this diagram. So here double indirect, two index files in two different block, three different blocks. So here we have a bigger index table. Here we have a smaller index table. Here again one more index table. So that is diverting to data from different locations. So that is a little bit complex or tricky. So to overcome this, we can go with the clustering also. It will improve throughput. Clustering of blocks can be implemented in this scenario. And adding instructions to the execution path to save one disk IO is reasonable. For example, here is an example. So Intel Core i7 Extreme Edition. So this is a version of the core processor with the clock speed of 3.4 gigahertz, 46 gigahertz. So it will have up to 159,000 scenario to read and write operations over here from this particular scenario. And total disk drive, input output, right, for this. So coming to the free space management, the file system maintains free space list to track available blocks or clusters. So whenever all the blocks are allocated, some of the blocks may be kept empty. So to maintain that, to maintain free space, we're supposed to have a free space list to track with all those. So if you have a clustering mechanism, we can cluster it and you can allocate for the required files. So we can have that free space list to track available blocks or clusters. So we can go with bit vector or bitmap also. Consider the situation here 0 to n. So bit I is from 0. So this is block 1, block 2, block 3, block 4, and so on, or individual. So now each blocks we can have a list, that is we can have this track, entire freely available tracks that can be have a copy in this bit vector or bitmap. On the other hand, we can have that block numbers in this particular scenario as a list. So we can easily calculate, block number calculation can be performed using this particular formula. Number of bits per word into number of value words plus offset of first one bit. This is how to calculate block number. So going back to the diagram over here, in this case scenario, consider. So here 0, 4, 8, 12, then 13, 5, and then 2, 3, 7, here is 6, 11. So these are the blocks are empty. To maintain this particular blank space or the free space, we can maintain a list. So in that particular list, we can have this kind of scenario. We can have all those block numbers in this individual bits. This is how bitmap works. We can have number of block numbers over here or block address in this particular vector, so that we can easily calculate free space. So bitmap requires extra space. For example, block size is a 4 KB block size, so nothing but 2 to the power 12 bytes. The scenario is disk size with the 2 to the power 40 bytes, that is 1 TB. Then number of blocks are nothing but 2 to the power 40 divided by 2 to the power 12, that is 32 MB. So clusters of 4 blocks we can have it, then we can have 8 MB of memory space, so that it is easier to get continuous files. So here you can see that. So linked list has been implemented. So to have a space list, free space list on the disk. So here, using linked list, consider the situation. The block 2 has been free. From there, we are supposed to give a pointer towards 3 because 3 is empty. And then 4 is empty, 5 is empty, then 8 is empty, and so on. So we can have a group cluster like this to maintain a free space. So using linked list, it will be difficult to have a continuous space easily. But one thing we can assure is there is no wastage of space. So no need to traverse the entire list when we have number of free blocks, which is already recorded, which is already available over here in this bitmap, bit vectors. So only thing is we are supposed to maintain it. So to maintain with that, we can have a grouping. So grouping nothing but modify linked list to store address of next n-1 free blocks in the first free block, then pointer to next block that contains free block pointers like this one. So this is how we can group. This is what we implemented here, grouping. So we grouped all those free blocks and we recorded these block numbers in a bitmap, that is in the bit vector. Then once we have that one, we can apply counting. Because space is frequently contiguously used and freed, with the contiguous allocation, extension, clustering can be performed again and again repeatedly. So each time we is supposed to update with this bitmap vector. So we supposed to keep address of first free block and count of following free blocks, because we have it is already linked. Free space list then has entries containing addresses and counts, because we maintained in the bitmap. So these block numbers are recorded over here in this bitmap vector. We supposed to update this bitmap vector continuously, because each time if it is a continuous, some of the files supposed to read, some of the files are supposed to updated, some of the files supposed to be deleted. So at that time, each and every time, whenever there is a file access, supposed to update with this bitmap, then only we can have this counting. So counting will become easier when we have keep track of the first free block, address of first free block, and then count following free blocks. Free space list then has entries containing address and counts, as we know. Space maps used in ZFS consider metadata IO on every large file systems. Consider a scenario as an example in this particular case. So this ZFS is nothing but a Sun Microsystems file system is designed for huge number of files, huge number and size, huge size. For example, we can say big data sometimes. It's not exactly big data. Big data follows HDFS or some other kind of scenario. Same thing, similar to that, ZFS. consider metadata IO on every large file systems. So full data structure like bitmaps couldn't fit in memory because we have thousands of IOs. So in that scenario, you can divide the device space into metaslab units. So when there is a large file, it is very difficult to trace out the blocks, free blocks. So then we can have a group, divide device space into metaslab units. And is supposed to manage with this metaslab. Metaslab is nothing but it is a volume of blocks contain 100 of metaslab again. Grouping. So each metaslab has associated with this particular space map. So it will implement, it makes use of counting algorithm. Any one counting algorithm can be implemented along with this. But records to log file rather than file system. This is one of the update. Because all of these entries, meta spaces or device spaces can be recorded in the log file itself, not in the file system. So it is a little bit easier because it's only supposed to look after this particular log file. So log of all block activity with respect to time in time order and in counting format is recorded in the log file. And metaslab activity is recorded in such a way that load space map into memory in balanced tree structure indexed by offset. This is how it is. So supposed to load the space map, whatever the space available, freely available with respect to large file, there is to be loaded into memory. Load space mapping supposed to be loaded into memory. From there, we can track it using tree structure, and it is indexed by offset its address, so that we can easily replay log into that structure. So whatever we have details in this log files, in the log file, so that we can easier to structure it and track it. And we can easily combine contiguous free blocks into single entry as we have the log file details. So log file details has all those space addresses in the form of log, nothing but it restructured, and you can easily have a replica, have a clearly address of each individual blocks. So that is about file system implementations. It completes the fourth module. So if you have any clarification, please get back to me. So we'll discuss if you have any